Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something that really affects a lot of people managing diabetes: neuropathic pain.
Hmm.
It's basically where nerve damage leads to significant pain, and it's pretty common. Maybe up to 1 in 3 people with diabetes experience it.
That's right. And the impact on quality of life is just huge. Think about disrupted sleep, trouble with daily activities.
Hmm.
It really adds up.
And there's a big economic cost too, right? Something like $3.65 billion lost every year in the U.S. alone.
Exactly. Plus, there's a really concerning link between chronic pain and increased mortality rates.
Oh
It's
my
serious stuff.
So the key thing here, the thing we really want to focus on in this deep dive, is how crucial early detection and continuous monitoring are. Getting in early can make a real difference.
Absolutely. Because diabetic peripheral neuropathy, or DPN, it often doesn't announce itself loudly. It kind of creeps up.
How so?
Well, often the very small nerve fibers degenerate first. These are the ones that sense things like temperature and pain.
So that's why the early signs might be things like burning pain or like electric shocks, stabbing feeling.
Precisely. Or numbness, tingling,
Hmm.
that pins and needle sensation.
Yeah.
Things that can really mess with your sleep and just, your ability to function normally day to day.
Okay, so let's get into the why. What's actually going wrong in the body to cause this nerve damage?
Well, it's multifactorial. There isn't just one single cause. High blood sugar, hyperglycemia is definitely a major player.
Right, too much sugar damaging nerves over time.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but it's also linked to things like high cholesterol and triglycerides, hyperlipidemia, and insulin resistance.
Okay.
And then there's oxidative stress, which is kind of an imbalance. Too many harmful molecules, not enough antioxidants to fight them off. That damages cells, including nerve cells.
So it's a complex environment.
Very. And inside the nerve cells themselves, high sugar levels can trigger these specific biochemical pathways. You might hear names like the polyol pathway, hexosamine, PKC. Essentially, they start producing harmful byproducts.
Right.
Plus, even the tiny blood vessels supplying the nerves can get damaged, leading to less oxygen and blood flow. It's a whole cascade of events.
With all that going on, it really underscores why catching it early seems so important. What's the evidence for early intervention actually helping?
Oh, the evidence is quite strong, especially from landmark trials like the DCCC, that's the Diabetes Control and Complications Trial in type 1 diabetes.
I've heard of that one.
Right. And its follow-up, the EDS study, they clearly showed that intensive insulin therapy, really tight blood sugar control, significantly cut the risk of developing DPN.
Okay, so that's type 1. What about type 2 diabetes? It's often more complex, right?
It is. In type 2, it's usually about a more multifactorial approach. Managing blood sugar is still key, absolutely,
Yeah.
but also tackling lipids, high blood pressure, it all contributes.
And lifestyle, I assume. Diet, exercise.
Definitely. Those are foundational for managing the underlying conditions that drive neuropathy.
So given how vital early detection is, what are the current go-to methods doctors use? What's the standard toolkit look like?
Well, the starting point is always a really careful clinical history. Listening to the patient describe their symptoms is just fundamental.
Makes sense.
Then, the physical exam typically includes checking sensation, can they feel temperature changes. A light pinprick, that tests those small fibers we mentioned.
Okay.
We also test vibration sense, usually with a 128 hertz tuning fork on the feet, which tells us about the larger nerve fibers.
Mm.
And then there's the annual 10-gram monofilament test.
Ah, yes, the monofilament. That's mainly for foot ulcer risk. This is it.
Exactly. It identifies people who've lost protective sensation and are at higher risk for foot problems. It's crucial for prevention.
So these are important tools, definitely, but are they sensitive enough to pick up the very earliest signs of nerve damage before things get too advanced?
That's the challenge. While they're essential for identifying established neuropathy and risk, we do have some more advanced tools that might detect changes earlier.
Like what?
Well, one example is pseudoscan. It's this FDA-approved tech that measures pseudomotor function.
Pseudomotor, so what gland function?
Exactly. It measures the electrochemical skin conductance in the hands and feet, basically assessing how well the nerves controlling sweat glands are working.
Huh. Why is that useful?
Because dysfunction in those autonomic nerves, especially in the feet, can be one of the earliest signs of neuropathy. It's quick, non-invasive, and interestingly, it's even approved for risk stratification in people with prediabetes.
Wow, even before a diabetes diagnosis, that is early. What else is out there in terms of cutting-edge diagnostics?
Another fascinating one is corneal confocal microscopy, CCM.
looking at the eye, how does that relate to nerves in the feet?
It's amazing, actually.
Hmm.
CCM lets us directly visualize the nerve fibers in the cornea, the clear front part of the eye.
Okay.
And research shows that reductions in the length and density of these corneal nerves can show up really early, even in people with just impaired glucose tolerance, sometimes before other tests show anything.
So changes in the eye nerves reflect systemic nerve issues.
It seems so. And what's really significant is that studies have found a rapid decline in these corneal nerve measures can actually predict who's more likely to develop foot ulcers or Charcot foot down the line.
Being able to see the nerves directly. Yeah, that sounds like a potential game changer for early detection.
It's definitely a promising area.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've been hearing so much about large language models, LLMs, and their potential in various fields, including healthcare. Can you give us a quick rundown? What are these LLMs, fundamentally?
Sure. So think of LLMs as incredibly advanced AI programs. They've been trained on just massive amounts of text and code.
Okay.
And because of that training, they get really good at understanding human language, generating text, answering questions, summarizing things, translating. They basically learn the patterns of language.
And you found some research looking specifically at how these LLMs might be used for diabetes care.
Yes, there was one study that caught my eye. They developed something called a knowledge-infused LLM-powered conversational health agent. Quite a mouthful.
Haha. Yeah, what did it do?
It was essentially a specialized chatbot for people with diabetes. It had a few key parts. One was a knowledge base that could pull in real-time nutritional data using something called the Nutritionix API.
Ah, so it wasn't just using general web knowledge, it was accessing specific up-to-date food information.
Exactly. That allows for much more reliable advice about diet, which is obviously critical in diabetes management.
Makes sense. What else was built into this agent?
It also had AI and analysis models. These could analyze the data, and one really neat feature was a daily food risk assessment.
How did that work?
It would take the nutritional info for the food, a user logged, and compare it against established diabetic guidelines, looking at carbs, sugar, protein, fiber, that sort of thing.
So it could tell you if your meal was, generally suitable or maybe had some red flags.
Precisely. They actually showed an example conversation comparing their specialized agent to a general LLM like GPT-4.
How did it do?
Their agent was significantly better at accurately assessing whether the described meals were appropriate for someone with diabetes, flagging specific nutrients that could be problematic.
That really shows the value of tailoring these models with specific domain knowledge.
Interesting. We also looked at another study, didn't we? One that tested LLMs more broadly on medical knowledge.
Yes, that one introduced a benchmark called Multi-Med QA. You can think of it as like a comprehensive medical exam for AI models.
Okay.
It pulled together a bunch of different medical question data sets, stuff like questions from medical licensing exams, but also questions that regular people might search for online about health topics.
So a pretty tough test. How did the LLMs perform?
Well, they tested a powerful model called PaLM and an improved version called FlanPaLM. Using some clever prompting techniques, FlanPaLM actually achieved state-of-the-art results on some medical multiple-choice question sets.
Better than previous benchmarks.
Yes, even surpassing previous top scores on things like the USMLE-style questions, which is pretty impressive. It sounds like it, but if I remember correctly, there were still some caveats, right? Especially when humans evaluated the answers.
That's right. While the multiple-choice performance was strong, human reviewers found gaps, particularly with more open-ended consumer-type questions. Issues around factual accuracy sometimes cropped up, and potential for generating harmful or misleading advice.
Okay, so not quite ready for prime time on its own yet.
Not entirely. But then they developed MedPaLM. They took FlanPaLM and did further fine-tuning, specifically focused on medical knowledge and safety.
And did that help?
It did, significantly. MedPaLM showed big improvements in aligning its answers with scientific consensus and, crucially, reduced the generation of potentially harmful responses. Its performance got much closer to that of actual clinicians in those evaluations.
So, definite progress, but still challenges remain. What limitations did the researchers highlight?
They pointed out several key areas needing more work, making sure the LLMs consistently use authoritative sources, being able to recognize and state when they're uncertain about an answer.
That seems important.
Very. Also, better multilingual capabilities and just ongoing work on safety guardrails to prevent bad information. Grounding the models is key.
Okay, so bringing this all together, we've talked about the difficulty of spotting DPN early, and we've seen the growing abilities of these LLM chatbots in healthcare, like for diabetes management. How do we connect these dots? How could LLMs specifically help with early detection and monitoring of neuropathic pain?
Right. This is where the potential synergy really lies. You can imagine an LLM-powered chatbot designed specifically for this purpose.
What would it do?
Well, for starters, symptom tracking and analysis. A user could regularly tell the chatbot about their symptoms, what
Yeah.
kind of pain, where is it, how often, any numbness or tingling.
Okay.
The element could analyze that input over time, looking for patterns, maybe subtle changes that the person themselves might not notice, which could signal early neuropathy or a worsening trend.
Like a smart symptom diary that spots trends. I like that. What else?
It could also help with risk factor assessment. The chatbot could ask about and track things like blood sugar control, lipid levels, blood pressure, diet, exercise, smoking habits, all the known DPN risk factors.
And put it all together.
Yeah, to generate a kind of personalized risk snapshot. This could help users see where they might need to focus their efforts to reduce their risk.
So it's proactive, not just reactive to symptoms. That sounds powerful. Could it help with education too?
Absolutely. A chatbot could be a great tool for educating users about the early signs of DPN, why detection matters so much, and what risk factors they can actually modify. Boosting awareness is key.
And if someone is more aware, maybe they'd know when to actually go see their doctor.
Exactly. Based on the symptom patterns and the risk profile, the chatbot could potentially offer guidance. Not medical advice, but perhaps suggesting it might be a good time to schedule a clinical checkup or even to ask their doctor about specific tests like pseudoscan or CCM.
So it acts like an intelligent triage assistant, maybe, helping guide people to the right care.
Sort of, yes. A support tool. And that continuous monitoring aspect is really valuable. Regular check-ins via chatbot could capture data between those less frequent doctor visits, potentially catching changes much sooner.
It all sounds incredibly promising, but we're talking about health data, sensitive symptoms. There have got to be some big challenges or considerations here.
Oh, definitely. Several crucial ones. First, the LLM itself needs to be trained on incredibly comprehensive, accurate, and up-to-date knowledge about DPN diagnostic criteria, symptom nuances, the latest research. Accuracy is non-negotiable.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, especially dangerous here.
Precisely. And it's absolutely vital that this chatbot doesn't act like a doctor. It can't give medical advice or replace clinical judgment.
It needs to be clearly positioned as a support tool.
Exactly. A tool to aid early identification and monitoring, prompting professional evaluation when appropriate. Then there are issues of potential bias in the training data,
Yeah.
ensuring equitable access for everyone, and of course,
Privacy and security.
top priority, protecting sensitive health information is paramount.
These are definitely critical hurdles to navigate carefully. It's about building trust and ensuring these tools genuinely help without causing harm.
That's the goal, leveraging this powerful tech responsibly to improve patient outcomes.
So let's try and wrap up this deep dive. We've seen how impactful neuropathic pain is for people with diabetes and why catching it early, monitoring it closely is so incredibly important.
And we've looked at how LLM-driven chatbots are showing real promise in supporting diabetes care, generally helping with education, risk assessment, diet.
And the exciting possibility is applying those capabilities directly to the challenge of DPN, using LLMs for symptom tracking, risk assessment, education, maybe guiding people towards timely clinical care.
It really highlights how AI, especially these sophisticated language models, could offer genuinely new ways to tackle some long-standing problems in chronic disease management. That ability to process information, interact naturally, it opens doors.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. Given how fast LLM tech is moving and how badly we need better tools for spotting diabetic neuropathy early, how do we actually integrate these AI solutions into healthcare thoughtfully, ethically, effectively? How do we make sure they truly benefit the people who need them most?
It's definitely something to keep watching, this intersection of AI and medicine. Lots of potential, but lots to consider.
Indeed. Thanks for diving deep with us today.